She walked into their grand home wearing a simple sari, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear but from a truth she was hiding. I still remember that morning clearly. I woke up before the sun, quietly preparing myself. My son Arif had fallen in love with a girl from a wealthy family, the Maras. They were known in the city for their business empire, their lavish lifestyle, and their pride. And today I was going to meet them for the first time, as the poor, simple mother. I wore the plainest clothes I owned, a faded sari that had seen many seasons. My hands were rough from years of work, and I tied my hair into a simple bun. I didn't wear jewelry, not because I didn't have any, but because I wanted them to see what they truly valued in people. Arif looked nervous. Mom, please, they can be a little proud. Just stay quiet, okay? I smiled softly. Don't worry, Beta. I know how to stay quiet. He didn't realize I wasn't planning to stay quiet forever. Not once I saw how they treated people. When we reached their mansion, the door opened before we even knocked. A maid, not much older than me, greeted us with a quick nod and led us inside. The hall sparkled. Chandeliers, marble floors, paintings worth more than what most people earn in a year. It was beautiful but cold, the kind of beauty that hides arrogance underneath. Then I saw her, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law Anaya. She came forward with a warm smile. Namaste, Auntie. Her smile was kind, her eyes sincere. I could see why Arif loved her. But behind her, her mother, Mrs. Mara, stood still, looking at me from head to toe. That one glance was enough. I understood what she thought of me. Oh, you must be Arif's mother, she said, her voice sharp yet polite. Please have a seat. I sat down carefully, clutching my old purse. Thank you, Beta, I said gently. She didn't respond. Her husband, Mr. Mara, joined us soon, looking busy and uninterested. So, Arif, he said, you work in our daughter's company, right? Arif nodded. Yes, sir, I do. And what does your mother do? Mrs. Mara asked suddenly, her tone curious but mocking. I smiled. Oh, nothing much. Just manage a small grocery shop in our neighborhood. Her eyebrows rose. A shop? Oh, that's nice, she said, her words dipped in fake politeness. Arif's face turned red with embarrassment. He wanted to interrupt, but I stopped him with a small glance. I had my plan, and this was just the beginning. They invited us for lunch, though it felt more like a test than a meal. The table was filled with dishes I didn't even recognize. I quietly took some rice and curry, eating slowly. I noticed the maid standing silently beside me, afraid to eat anything. She must have cooked all this, yet she wasn't allowed to sit. My heart ached for her. Mrs. Mara started talking about their social circle. Business dinners, parties, holidays abroad. I listened quietly. When she asked about my house, I said, it's small but full of peace. Her lips curved into a tight smile. I see. Simplicity is nice. They thought I didn't understand the hidden meaning behind their smiles. They thought I was naive, uneducated, and poor. And that's exactly what I wanted them to believe. After lunch, Anaya walked me to the door. Auntie, I really like you, she said shyly. You remind me of my nanny. I smiled warmly. That's sweet, Beta. Always stay kind. Kindness is what keeps a home alive. As we left, I could feel Mrs. Mara's eyes following me. She was already judging, already deciding what kind of mother-in-law I would be. Arif stayed silent all the way home. When we reached, he sighed. Mom, they look down on you. I'm sorry. I placed my hand on his. Don't be, Beta. Sometimes people need to see dust before they realize its worth in building walls. He looked confused, but I said no more. I knew what I was doing. The next time they saw me, things would be very different. That night, I opened an old wooden box from my cupboard. Inside were documents, photos, and memories I had kept hidden. My husband's business papers, land deeds, investments. They had all been under my name since he passed away. I had quietly built everything we had. Not for pride, but for protection. And now those papers would reveal the truth about who I really was. But not yet. First, I needed to see who truly cared about my son. And who only cared about money. I folded the papers back, whispering to myself, let them believe what they want. The truth has a way of showing itself at the right time. And in that quiet night, the poor naive mother everyone underestimated began her silent plan to test every heart around her. She decided to return, still dressed in simplicity, but this time every word she spoke would test their hearts. A week had passed since that first meeting. Arav was restless. He loved Anaya deeply, but he could sense his fiancée's parents were not happy with him. Mrs. Mera had told her daughter, "He's a good boy, but marriage isn't just about love, it's about matching families." Those words reached me through Arav's silence. He didn't tell me directly, but I could see it in his eyes. He was scared of losing the woman he loved. And so, I decided it was time to visit again. I didn't tell Arav what I planned. I simply said, "Let's go meet them once more, Beta." Sometimes people need more than one chance to see clearly. When we reached their house, Mrs. Mera was surprised to see me. "Oh, you came again," she said, forcing a smile. "Yes, Beta," I replied softly. "I wanted to bring some sweets. I made them myself." Her expression changed, confusion mixed with mild irritation. "You didn't have to trouble yourself." "It's no trouble," I said kindly, handing her the small box wrapped in an old newspaper. She took it reluctantly and placed it on the table, clearly unimpressed. But Anaya came rushing forward. "Auntie, you made these yourself." "Yes, dear," I smiled. "I used to make them for Arav when he was little. He would never sleep without at least one sweet after dinner." Anaya giggled. "That's adorable." Mrs. Mera didn't laugh. She was watching my every move, how I stood, how I spoke, how I carried myself. I could tell she was searching for flaws. As we sat down for tea, she asked in that same polite but sharp tone, "So, Mrs. Sharma, do you manage your shop all by yourself?" "Yes," I replied calmly. "But I also handle some small property matters." "Property?" she repeated, eyebrows raised. I nodded, taking a sip of tea. "Just a few small lands my late husband left behind. I manage them quietly." Her smile faltered for a second, just a flicker of surprise. Then she regained her composure. "That's good. At least you're independent." I nodded gently, pretending not to notice her discomfort. But I noticed something else. The maid, the same woman who had opened the door last time, accidentally dropped a spoon. Mrs. Mera immediately scolded her harshly. "How careless! Can't you see guests are here?" The poor woman muttered an apology and bent to pick it up. Something inside me tightened. I calmly got up, picked up the spoon first and handed it back to the maid. "It's all right, accidents happen," I said softly. The maid looked at me with tears in her eyes, maybe the first kind word she'd heard in days. Mrs. Mera's expression froze. She forced a laugh. "You're very kind, Mrs. Sharma. I just believe respect shouldn't depend on wealth," I said gently, looking straight at her. "After all, even the smallest person can carry the biggest heart." For a moment there was silence. Anaya looked down, embarrassed. Arav held his breath. And then Mrs. Mera broke the tension by changing the topic. "So, Mrs. Sharma, are you comfortable with our families being quite different?" I smiled. "Differences are what make people learn from each other. What matters is not how much we have, but how much we give." Mr. Mera finally spoke up. "You talk like a teacher." I chuckled softly. "Life has been my only classroom, sir." The rest of the visit went smoothly, but I could tell they were thinking, trying to place me somewhere between too simple and too confident. When we were about to leave, Anaya held my hand. "Auntie, I hope you'll come again soon." I smiled and squeezed her hand. "Of course, Beta. Next time, I'll bring something even sweeter." As we stepped out, Mrs. Mera followed us to the gate. "Mrs. Sharma," she said, her tone suddenly polite, "I didn't know you handled property matters. That's impressive." I smiled faintly. "Oh, it's nothing much. Just a few things my husband taught me before he passed." Her eyes softened, curiosity mixed with calculation. "You must have gone through a lot." I looked at her calmly. "Yes, but pain can either break you or teach you." I chose to learn. That night back home, Arav was quiet again. He finally asked, "Mom, why didn't you tell them about Dad's business? About our house, our land, everything?" I smiled. "Because if they can't respect you when they think you're poor, they don't deserve to be with you when they find out you're not." He didn't reply. But his silence wasn't confusion anymore. It was understanding. Later, I opened my cupboard again and looked at the same box of documents. I traced my fingers over the old property papers, then looked out the window at the night sky. I'm not testing them for revenge, I whispered. I'm testing them for truth. Arv peeked into my room. Mom. Yes, Beta. Anaya called. She said her parents invited us for dinner tomorrow night. They want to talk seriously about the marriage. I smiled faintly. Good. Tomorrow night the real test begins. He frowned. What do you mean? Sometimes people show their true face only when they think they've already won, I said softly. Let's see who they really are when they think the poor mother is gone for good. I closed the box and turned off the light. The room went dark, but my heart was steady, calm like the silence before a storm. And as the night deepened, the so-called poor mother was ready to change everything with quiet grace and unstoppable truth. She walked into that luxurious house one last time. But this time she wasn't there to be accepted. She was there to reveal the truth. The next evening arrived faster than I expected. I spent the whole morning in quiet thought, sitting by the window with a cup of tea. The city outside was alive and busy, but inside my heart, there was only calm determination. Arif came out of his room dressed neatly, his face a mixture of hope and anxiety. Mom, he said softly, please promise me you'll stay calm tonight. I smiled faintly. I've always been calm, Beta. It's the world that gets noisy around me. He tried to smile back, but I could see the worry in his eyes. For him, this dinner wasn't just a family meeting. It was the moment that could decide his entire future. By evening, we stood again in front of the Mara mansion. The golden lights glowed from behind tall windows, reflecting the wealth and pride of its owners. As the maid opened the door, I noticed her glance. Tired, nervous, still the same woman from before. I smiled gently at her, and her eyes softened instantly. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy with politeness. Mrs. Mara and Mr. Mara greeted us with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Anaya looked relieved to see us. Please, Mrs. Mara said with her practiced charm. Have a seat. Dinner will be served soon. Thank you, I replied calmly. Your home looks beautiful tonight. She smiled proudly. Yes, we just redecorated the dining hall. Imported furniture from Italy. I looked around. Every inch of the room screamed wealth. Crystal lights, marble floors, paintings that looked expensive but lifeless. Lovely, I said quietly. But I still think the warmth of a home comes from the people inside it. She gave a polite laugh, unsure whether I meant it as a compliment or something else. We all sat down. The maid entered again, carefully serving dishes. I noticed how she trembled each time she approached the table. The silence was sharp. Finally, Mr. Mara cleared his throat. Mrs. Sharma, we wanted to speak frankly tonight. About our children's marriage. Of course, I said. Honesty is always welcome. He looked at his wife, then continued. Arv is a good young man. We appreciate that. But as parents, we must also think about the future, about stability, about image. I looked at him calmly. And you believe he can't provide that? Mrs. Mara smiled tightly. It's not that he can't. But, you see, Anaya has lived a certain lifestyle. She's used to certain standards. It would be unfair to ask her to adjust too much. Arv tensed beside me. I gently placed my hand on his to keep him silent. I understand, I said softly. You want your daughter's comfort. Exactly, Mrs. Mara nodded quickly. You understand perfectly. I smiled faintly. But tell me, what kind of comfort lasts? The one made of silk sheets or the one built on respect? Her smile vanished. I'm sorry. I leaned slightly forward, my tone still gentle. I've seen many rich people live in grand homes but sleep without peace. And I've seen poor families laugh together in small rooms. Which comfort are we talking about tonight? For the first time she had no answer. Mr. Mara shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Before they could reply, the maid accidentally spilled a few drops of curry on the tablecloth. Mrs. Mara's face turned red. Can't you do anything right? She snapped. The maid froze in fear. I stood up slowly, took a napkin and cleaned it myself. Please don't worry, I said kindly. A stain on a cloth is nothing compared to a stain on a heart. Everyone went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the clock and the quiet clatter of dishes. Then calmly I looked at Mrs. Mara. Do you know why I came tonight? She blinked. To discuss your son's marriage, I suppose. I shook my head slightly. No. I came to understand whether this family sees value in people or only in appearances. Arv's eyes widened slightly. Anaya looked between us, her breath quickening. Mrs. Sharma, Mr. Mehra said firmly, you're being unfair. We never judged your son. I turned my gaze to him. Really? Then why do you keep talking about lifestyle and image instead of love and respect? Mrs. Mehra tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand slightly. My voice remained calm but firm, the tone of someone who had endured too much to be afraid now. When I first met you, I continued, I came as a simple woman, wearing old clothes, bringing homemade sweets, speaking with humility. You saw me as poor. You measured me by my clothes, my home, my looks. But you never once asked who I was as a person. Mrs. Mehra's lips parted, but no words came. I smiled gently. You assumed I was ordinary. And that's exactly what I wanted you to think. Mr. Mehra frowned. What are you saying? I took a deep breath. That night, you saw only what your eyes allowed you to. You never saw the truth. You see, the woman sitting before you, the so-called poor mother, manages one of the largest educational trusts in this city. My husband built it from nothing, and I continued it after his death. The shop you heard about? It's one of our community centers. I'm not telling you this to boast. I'm telling you because I wanted to know. Would you still respect me if you thought I had nothing? Silence. The air in the room changed. Anaya's eyes widened in shock. Mrs. Mehra blinked, her mouth slightly open, struggling to speak. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I said softly. That's the point. You never cared to know. Mr. Mehra looked embarrassed, his voice low. We might have misjudged you. It's not about me, I replied. It's about what kind of people you choose to be. If you treat the less fortunate as invisible, your wealth means nothing. Anaya suddenly spoke, her voice trembling. Mom, Dad, she's right. Mrs. Mehra turned to her daughter, stunned. Anaya. Yes, she said firmly, tears forming in her eyes. We've always cared too much about what others think. But love isn't a business deal. I smiled at her gently. That's what I hoped you'd see. Mrs. Mehra lowered her gaze, ashamed. Mrs. Sharma, I don't know what to say. Say nothing, I said quietly. Just think. Sometimes the richest lessons come from the simplest people. The room was heavy with silence. Finally, Arv stood up. Mom, let's go. I nodded. Yes, Beta. We've said what needed to be said. As we turned to leave, Anaya ran forward. Auntie, please wait. She hugged me tightly, whispering, Thank you for showing us what real dignity looks like. I smiled and placed a hand on her head. Be the kind of woman who values hearts, not handbags. The rest will follow. We walked out quietly, leaving behind the glittering lights and the sound of wealth echoing through empty halls. Outside, the night was cool, the moonlight soft. Arv looked at me, speechless. Mom, you planned this all along, didn't you? I smiled faintly. No, Beta. I didn't plan to humiliate them. I planned to remind them what humanity looks like. We walked to the car, the sound of our steps fading into the calm night. And that night, the poor mother they once ignored left behind a lesson they would never forget, that true richness has nothing to do with gold, and everything to do with grace.